Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to our session on the state of online video advertising across Europe. One of my favorite topics. I think it's no secret to anyone that the European online video market is seeing rapid growth. It now commands 40% of all display spend. That's the IAB's bucketing of digital advertising. It sort of falls under display. And it's the fastest growing segment within social, very much the powerhouse of the major social networks. Innovations in the space, there's still lots of growth ahead of us. We're seeing advancements in video quality and 5G, meaning that this growth will only continue. Still the most exciting part of media. The market's still highly fragmented, which for me makes it very interesting. Across Europe, there's sort of several factors. We've got media consumption habits, we've got different rates of growth and technical infrastructure, and we've got my favorite topic, different media trading cultures in different countries. Europe's a fascinating market to cover, and we wouldn't have it any other way. But there has been something of a lack of research into the various formats and the factors affecting buying decisions across the programmatic space. Thankfully, IAB Europe, our good friends, and one of our favorite trade associations at VideoWeek, and PubMatic have released a new study on the state of online video advertising across Europe. And I'm joined today, thankfully, by Hitesh Bhatt from PubMatic and Chris Edwards from Rakuten, or Rakuten, if you prefer. So firstly, Hitesh, let's kick things off with you. Did any of the findings from the research sort of jump out at you or surprise you?
Hi, Vinny, by the way. I think it wasn't so much surprising as just reinforcing what's happening in the market that many people know. Online video is growing, certainly as an advertising medium. Right now, mobile video probably dominates in terms of scale, but what we're seeing is CTV growing at a really accelerated pace. When you think about it, linear TV viewing is in decline, right? And particularly certain audiences, not just the younger ones. We've got kind of upmarket audiences, families, and they're shifting to CTV, to subscription VOD, to advertiser-funded VOD. And ultimately, where eyeballs go, advertising money goes now. That is, a truism that's always happened. I think in TV, it will be a bit of a lag just because of the trading mechanisms, your favorite soft topic. But in time, that's where the money will go because that's where the eyeballs are going. So I think the key element that leapt out to me was one of the fastest growing areas, which is CTV. Yeah.
And on the topic of CTV, I think appreciate. I'm not sure where the audience are coming from, but I'm guessing many will be sort of digital natives moving into CTV, or perhaps from the TV world and sort of maybe embracing the new developments in digital and programmatic. But this word addressability sort of straddles the two, and I think it can mean very different things in an online video context and then in a CTV context. Chris, what for you does this word addressability mean in the CTV world?
Yeah, hi Vin, thanks for having us. So audience addressability in the connected TV space, what we have within Rakuten TV is less about what you call the individual that you'd be targeting in, say, the online world, online video world, sorry. And so what we see in this connected TV space is very much about the household. It's the biggest screen in the house, and invariably it is viewed by more than one person. So we're very much talking about targeting the group, the household, the family, the friends, on the interest-based level with the content that they're viewing.
And one of the big themes for this year continues to be privacy, or identity/privacy. And I'm wondering what identity solutions, there's so many of them now. It's questionable, about how many we're going to need in the future, but which of the identity solutions are sort of rising to the top at the moment? Hitesh, what are you seeing in terms of?
Yeah, I think that there are a number, frankly, right? I think the challenge that we're facing now is that there's a lack of standards across identity, across targeting, even across privacy. And then that's leading to buyers having to mix and match, so they're kind of using whatever works best for them in different scenarios, which is not the worst thing in the world, but ultimately I think we need to develop the standards to make that work. which is going to require collaboration across the different players in the market. And, I think that's moving in the right direction as well. It's a challenge. There's some big businesses there who, are big competitors, but they need to work together to help develop the whole industry. And we're starting to see that happening. There's initiatives like the European Connected TV initiative, which is pulling together various people in the market to try and talk about these things. So I think it's starting to happen. I think there just needs to be a level of ownership that starts driving that forward.
Chris, what are you seeing happen on the identity front? I mean, what sort of identity solutions are rising to the top in CTV?
Yeah, I think on our part, it's very much like I referenced earlier, the contextual approach. So targeting very much on the interests of what's being viewed. So that's very much at sort of the top of the pile. But then, of course, because we don't collect, certainly in Rakuten TV, we don't collect data on any of our individuals or any of our households. So we very much go down the interest route, but then apply what we can do from a ad server level based on everything from geo day parting through to the device type as well. So, we really try to leverage what it has in terms of our strongest appeal, which is the content based.
Yeah. Sorry, Hitesh, go ahead.
It's quite a key point there. That's probably the one which can be more consistent across the board. And I think that something that's developed quite recently is the IAB standards around contextual targeting, so content object targeting, where a publisher can deliver various signals through the programmatic platform, whether that be content title, genre, the length, the language. And that's really kind of pushing CTV towards more linear, the way linear is bought, which kind of will certainly help it grow. So we've launched at PubMatic recently content object targeting through our platform, which enables publishers to pass this data and buyers to buy against it. And we're starting to see publishers take this up. I think there's been it's been relatively slow. One of the reasons being that publishers are a little bit nervous about buyers cherry picking the content that they want to buy and not buying other stuff. But we've built in controls around kind of floor pricing so they can manage the pricing of the premium shows. And I think as buyers demand more kind of TV-like buying capabilities within programmatic, content object and contextual targeting is certainly going to be the way it grows.
One of the promises of Connect TV originally was very much, okay, you're connecting TV to the internet, and it should, in theory, enable all this sort of new functionality, interactivity, and yet most of what I'm seeing still looks pretty much like traditional advertising, TV advertising, which there's no shame in. It's certainly an extremely powerful format. An element of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I'm sort of surprised that we're not seeing a little bit more on the sort of innovation front or interactivity or new ways of engaging. But so firstly, how is CTV advertising different? How is it evolving? Are we starting to see shifts towards new ways of using TV advertising? Chris, want to start us on that one, perhaps?
Yeah, so one of the areas we're certainly developing at Rakuten and are going to market with, I guess what you see as a very unique solution, which is shoppable ads. So, Rakuten is heavily embedded in the world of both branding and in performance, if you look at our affiliate business. So we really were keen to sort of connect the dots, and shoppable ads is something we've developed alongside our partners at Innovid, which is enabling QR codes to be embedded within the video creative, and then allowing the user through their other devices to be able to engage with a campaign, whether it's to book a test drive or to actually shop for a product. So to make that experience a lot more engaging, whilst at the same time not interrupting their viewing pleasure, because at the end of the day, they want to watch the film. So we don't want to take them away from that experience. So having this QR code opportunity is certainly something unique we're taking to market right now.
Are you seeing any sort of practical examples of different ways of?
We're starting to see that. I think shoppable ads and QR codes is certainly one of the more kind of talked about areas of interactivity. It will develop. I think people are still coming to terms with the medium as a whole, and that experimentation will start to grow. But to your earlier point, Vinny, it is still TV, right? TV is a lean back experience. It's quality ads and quality content. And that's always driven really great sort of brand benefits. So, to some extent, advertisers are using it. It's just TV reaching a different audience. What we're seeing more of is performance, and sort of DRTV brands, direct-to-consumer brands are embracing connected TV because it's got that kind of the power of video plus the level of targeting and hyper-local targeting, things like that, which can really drive performance. I've seen some studies which showed CTV delivering 6 times the ROI of traditional linear TV for some DRTV advertisers. So I think that's an area which will grow.
And to what extent is the buy side evolving? You know, there's been an awful lot of, there's an awful lot of agency talk, I would say, about, unified teams with 360 view, we're agile, and yet when I know from people who are, whether it's vendors or media owners, when they're trying to sell CTV into agencies, they're often falling down between 2 stools. Often it's a digital team, sometimes a TV team. To what extent are they adapting and evolving to sort of enable the growth of the market and to get the best out of the medium by having dedicated experts managing things?
I can take that one if you like.
Yeah, great.
I mean, I think they are evolving. It's taking time. I think there's a level of kind of nice turf war going on within agencies about connected TV, because it sits really between traditional linear and digital. And I think that both sort of areas have a valid claim over connected TV. So I think one of the ways forward could be around kind of the objectives of campaign. So if they're looking to drive incremental reach versus linear TV, perhaps that's a job for the traditional TV guys to get hold of, because that's historically their skill set. And if the campaign is looking at a more performance-based metric, then that might be the digital team's kind of strength. And then perhaps alongside that, you've got programmatic teams supporting both. I think it will take time. I think a team that often gets not ignored, I guess, is the planning teams. They sit higher up the process, and they're looking at it at very much holistic pace. They're looking at how CTV combines with not just traditional linear TV, but other parts of the media plan. So I think there's work happening. Different agencies are working at different paces. Some are developing specific specialized teams. Others are just trying to work and melding the 2 teams together. So I think we're in the middle of that process, but it will shape up in time.
Yeah, and I'll just reiterate Hitesh's point there. It's absolutely a very scattered view of agency land. Each agency group has a very different approach. So it's a case of maybe sort of adapting and being agile enough to adapt to their buying style that's going to be best placed for their brands. So it's definitely changing. Definitely getting more apparent, more awareness in market, but it's still some way to go, I think.
One of the one of the promises of CTV advertising is that, in theory at least, it should reduce the barrier to entry for new players to enter the market. I think setting up a CTV app is considerably less complicated than setting up a linear TV channel was back in the day. But getting discovered on the platforms is always a major challenge. And I think anyone who interacts with CTV, you will often, occasionally, if you do search around the platform, you'll notice there's lots of other apps that maybe you didn't even know were launched or weren't particularly visible. So how do we make the more long tail publishers, or perhaps if there's say a newspaper brand that wants to sort of enter into this world, how do they get their app discovered? And do we have a problem with this discoverability issue? I mean, for you guys, Chris, how do you sort of approach discoverability at Rakuten?
Yeah, so with Rakuten, we've got a really unique advantage in markets where we partner with all the main TV manufacturers. And we actually have a branded remote control TV button on about 80% of all new devices sold across Europe. So it's a real high branding position of discoverability, which which has seen seismic growth on the platform since we launched the free to view ad funded service. But yes, I mean, the discoverability is key because it all depends on the type of TV device you have. So where the apps are featured, or whether it's on the homepage or whether it's actually scrolling through a menu service. So that is absolutely key, and we don't obviously 100% rely on just our branded TV button, because you can access our platform through through the pre-installed apps as well. So I think just to maximise on that awareness is absolutely key for any brand to be featured, and because there are more and more channels launching and further growth going to be seen, not just from the subscription services, but also the free TV ad services. So to getting and finding a consumer who can actually sift through that to find content that is premium and of what they want to watch is absolutely imperative for a new publisher coming into this space.
Yep. Hitesh, I don't know if you have any sort of take on the discoverability side of things. It's, you know, are you seeing, you know, within, you know, the companies you work with, are you seeing smaller companies, flourishing, and how are they doing it if they are?
I mean, some of it comes down to, I guess, you know, marketing and partnerships. So with the OEMs, you can purchase certain slots on the kind of program guide, which helps get some awareness. If you've got the kind of newspaper companies, for example, looking to launch into CTV, they can obviously cross market across their other platforms, so that will be helpful. But I think the main parallel we draw is with mobile apps, right? Where right now, obviously, there's two places you can basically find mobile apps, and it's pretty straightforward to find the kind of content you want. Clearly, CTV is not quite going to be as simple. There's going to be multiple ways in which you can access CTV apps. But I think where the OEMs are really making great strides is around their interfaces. I think they were probably quite clunky historically, but they're becoming much smarter now. So using artificial intelligence, using things like voice control to really help people discover the kind of content that they want. So that I think is going to be a key area of development. At the same time, you've got the kind of the set-top boxes, the Skies, the Virgins. They're looking to become the custodians of the entrance to CTV. So they're now developing interfaces to kind of collect all of the content that you might want to watch. And again, using intelligence to understand what you might like. So it's an interesting space. It'd be great to see how it plays out. It should be a fascinating kind of development in the next few years.
Do you think maybe that many media companies have been maybe a little bit intimidated and imagining that, you know, that they're entering into this SVOD war, when in fact, if you look at, you know, the growth of YouTube, you know, and people watching very cheaply produced, in many cases, not always, content on their TVs, and are quite happy to, provided it's maybe personalized and recommended. Do you think that YouTube have essentially, you know, made the case for the long tail on CTV, and that there's, you know, it should be encouraging for anyone who wants to build out a CTV business? Or is this discoverability issue always going to be a barrier? Chris, what's your feeling? Is it?
No, I mean, so the discoverability is one thing, but I think the premium content is going to be where we separate ourselves from, say, YouTube, which, you know, if you're going to focus on the user-generated content, yes, that's got a place there, absolutely. But the premium nature of the content that is featured in the CTV space is what's crucial and is what is driving the success at the moment. So whether it's original content like what Rakuten would have with its original series, or whether it's the premium Hollywood movies we would showcase on the platform. Discoverability for those is key, just as much as the partnerships we would have with various publishers. So Hitesh mentioned about the newspaper channels who are coming into this space. So yes, we've partnered with The Guardian. They are streaming their content, their award-winning documentary content through the Rakuten TV platform. So it's a combination of that accessing premium content, but also the broad variety of great content that's available, not just in the UK, but across Europe as well.
And just again, I'm talking a lot today about the original vision, but one of the original visions for Programmatic would be that we would have this sort of unified media landscape. Buyers would sit on their DSPs and be able to sort of cherry pick the impression they want, right place, right time, across the full media landscape. Hasn't quite worked out that way, and it seems like in CTV we're very much heading towards a, you know, we're seeing a growing number of walled gardens. What's the role of Programmatic in this sort of walled garden environment? Hitesh, maybe do you want to start us on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you think about where SSPs came from, they were, you know, they launched and developed because it enabled people to access multiple inventory sources in a holistic way and measure frequency across all of them, you know, manage the campaigns. That's still the reality. Clearly, the walled gardens can be a challenge in that space. And I think that, you know, an SSP can still play a part in that. It's, you know, an independent one where there's no kind of other connections. If they can tap into some of the content within walled gardens, and there's a job to be done there. You know, advertisers need to work with their publisher partners to let them realize that they won't miss out on budgets if it's bought in a different way. And SSPs need to do a job with the walled gardens to understand that there's no risks to this. It's just opening up the market. So to my point around measurement, is another area where we can try and push collaboration. And it really needs independent businesses to drive that.
Yeah. And when it comes to sort of ad-funded content, I think we're reaching a tipping point, a really interesting tipping point. I'm not going to lie, there was a few years there where I did wonder if the growth of SVOD was going to be more sustainable than maybe some of the more skeptical people thought. And that, but it seems like SVOD's becoming a little bit less attractive to consumers, and that they're increasingly turning towards advertising, combined with other sort of macroeconomic factors, the cost of living, which is very much an issue for even the most affluent people, I think, nowadays. So, yeah, firstly, yeah, are we at a tipping point, do you think? And okay, let's also throw in an additional question. How long do you think it'll be before Netflix introduce advertising?
I think I can start with this one. I think it's not surprising. We're already seeing news articles coming out that Netflix are considering an ad-funded format, just as much as Disney are as well, because I think there's definitely a cap that these SVOD services have got to. There's in terms of growth for new users, they are of course going to be exploring the ad-funded model. Like you mentioned about the environmental cost of living, there is definitely a cap of how much people are willing to spend each month. We did some surveys last year, and we identified that the maximum spent for a typical household would be €20 a month on subscription services. So that's limiting you to 3 maximum. So the rest is obviously going to be accessing and viewing their content through the ad-funded model for free-to-view content. So we're definitely seeing a tipping point, I think, certainly with the bigger players who are looking to explore that area themselves. So it's making it a very saturated marketplace. But like I said earlier, it's regarding the premium nature of content that's going to drive the users to platforms, whether it's going to be jumping around, but following their interests and their passions to find that content within this space.
I'm going to come back to you, Chris, on the Netflix question. We have a fixed set of time for your prediction. Hitesh, what's your feeling? Do you feel like we're at a tipping point where almost everything is going to be ad funded? I mean, even if you look at privatization, but the sort of what's happening with Channel 4 and I'd say some of the political noise around the BBC even and how that funds itself. Do you feel we're at a tipping point when it comes to more supply coming online?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the effect the government kind of points of view around this will be, but if you look at just consumers, the cost of living crisis is real and it's impacting a lot of people. And there are areas where they're going to be looking to trim spend, and probably subscription TV is one of those, right? And at the same time, they're experimenting with perhaps channels that they've been less familiar with. So the Rakutens, the Plutos are realizing there is actually quality content on those channels. And then you have the big kind of corporations, the Viacoms, the Paramount, HBO, and Disney, opening up ad-funded content. So they're now able to access this stuff, at a lower level, and people are used to seeing ads around TV content. So, I think that's driving it forward. I think Disney is probably a big driver because it is, very, very premium, and it now will be much cheaper with ads. So I think that will make a big change to the market.
And do you think we're going to see more bundling, and possibly even more consolidation? Chris?
Yeah, I do think so. I mean, it's going to be definitely sort of package driven, because you're still going to have that high premium nature. So very much like Rakuten is a hybrid streaming service. I think they'll emulate that and have the premium pay-per-view and then the ad-funded view of content, which is slightly older, maybe 2 or 3 years older than, say, the brand new release of the premium content.
So and going back to my Netflix question, okay, let's set a date. What date do you think Netflix will have advertising for? Obviously, it's finger in the air stuff, but maybe we can put some money on this after we finish. So, what date do you think Netflix will?
I'm not gonna stake a date claim. I think they're at least 12 months to 2 years away from that going to market.
I've got nothing to lose here. Let's pick a date. I think let's look at perhaps 12 months time. So April next year, right? And I think one of the factors there is that Netflix historically were looking to grow in less developed markets. So places like India, huge growth potential. But what we're reading recently is just India is not picking up Netflix because of the cost. So that kind of plan is not working out as they'd hoped. With Disney opening up ads, I think that will make it a little bit easier for Netflix to try and justify it. So yeah, I've picked a date. Who knows, right? I mean, it's finger in the air stuff.
I'm going to go for 1st of November 2023, just in time for the Christmas period. Get that nice revenue bump from the start, and yeah, happy to place bets with either of you afterwards. Gents, that's been absolutely fantastic. Thanks very much for taking the time, and I hope you're watching this, you've enjoyed our chat.
Great, thank you, Vinny. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks very much, guys.